Hello, everybody, and happy Sunday to you. Welcome to another episode of the Great Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys already know that I am Tony Lynch. I'm the host of this podcast, and of course, we are bringing another amazing guest to you guys today. We've been trying to schedule it. Now we're here. You guys are going to have a lot of fun. Get your pens and your paper ready. Be prepared to ask some questions and things like that as we go along, as she shares her journey with us. And before we get started, I would like to say that if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor. Head on over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And of course, we will be giving some updates of some amazing things that we have coming up. And before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say that this is for educational purposes only. Now, you guys help me welcome my guest. She is an amazing person, Miss Nadja. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be
here. Yes. Well, I'm excited to have you here. We made it happen.
Yeah, it took a while, but finally we made it happen today.
Yes. And I'm truly excited to have this conversation. Now, before we get started, tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
So my name is Nadja Fredericks, and I was born in Austria. And then I spent 20 years traveling around the world with my parents. And then I moved back to Austria, well, the first time actually, and did the whole family shaboom and the divorce and my education. And 13 years ago, I moved to South Africa. So at the moment, I'm coming from South Africa. Yeah. And I've been working as a life coach for 20 odd years. And I specialized in working with dementia patients and their primary caregivers. And so I slithered into that through my personal journey and just sort of stayed there. And that's what I do in person, and that's what I do online. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for the work that you do. Such important work. I think a lot of people, I think it's something that people don't really talk about too much, but it is becoming a very prominent thing to talk about. To have that support, to have people that will walk with you and understand where that comes from. Now before we get into more in depth into your work, how did you get into this work?
We had to, when I finished my training, we had to do about 800 hours of practical work in an institution. And I was a young mom back then, so I chose the most convenient one where I got the most hours in the shortest time frame. And that was a Yiddish old age home in Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent my time there with the aged, and I realized that I had a really good rapport to them, and I enjoyed sitting with them and just listening to their stories. And it was I just felt comfortable with the old people. And then my grandfather had dementia, and he got ill, and then I sort of slithered into the personal journey with him, and I realized that that it's also an opportunity. It's very sad, and it's a degenerative disease, but there's also an opportunity in this. And then I just deep dived in it and did a lot of training, and just stayed there because I have the affinity for the old people, and they seem to, we seem to create a rapport quite quick. And through the work with the dementia patients, I learned how to live in the here and now. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned, and probably the most essential lesson. I'm still learning, I'm still practicing to constantly go into the here and now, because for them, only the now exists. Right. And that fascinated me from a personal point of view, and also in my work. And so, and I just never left it. I tried to leave it, the field, and sort of scooted off somewhere else. I became a CrossFit coach, and I was I'm a yoga teacher, but it keeps pulling me back. And then about 10 years ago, my father was diagnosed with dementia. So I had to do the whole personal journey again, and grew through it. and learned some more lessons, and just decided now it's my calling. I love doing it, and yeah, just gonna stick with it for now.
That
Mental health.
yes, the mental health aspect of it. You know, I've talked to a lot of people, families who have loved ones who are suffering or struggling with dementia. I don't know if struggling or suffering is a correct term or
Probably
anything like
both.
that. A little bit of both, right? And you kind of hear the horror stories that come along with that. I think one of the most common ones I've ever heard was um, one minute they know who I am, and the next minute they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And they treat me like a total stranger, and it's
Mm.
kind of hard. I think as family members or as friends, close friends, I think the hardest thing, and I could be wrong, and I'll pose this to you. I think the hardest thing is that understanding that this disease um, is not their fault, right?
Mm.
It's not like us, it's not like someone who has a clear mind or anything like that, where we understand who people are. I think the mind is kind of reverting back, and there's things that are missing,
Mm.
and so it's kind of hard for people to grasp onto that.
So it's true that it's a cognitive decline, yes, and it can go fast. It can take some time. So we roughly talk about 12 years from the time of diagnostic. Um, it's interesting that you say they don't recognize me. Over the many years I've worked in this field now, with all the people that I've sort of walked their path, they might not understand who you are, or might not be able to articulate that it's Tony, you're my son, or you're my friend, or you're my husband. But one thing that they never, 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 never lose is that heart to heart connection.
Mm,
So
okay.
they recognize you on the emotional level always. Always. They never lose that. So we have to step into their world, because they cannot step into our world. So we step into their world and meet them where they're able to meet us. And often then, when the cognitive declines more and more and more, we can just reach them, or actually that's the perfect place to reach a person, is from the heart to heart. And that sticks in, that's in cellular memory. That's not in this memory that declines, but
Mhm.
that's in cellular memory. So I will never forget, I had a patient in one of the institutions that I worked, and we always had a cup of hot chocolate and like a rusk, like a cookie. And then I left, and 5 months later I came back. And I walked, and I sat next to her, and I said, "Hello, Frau Feiler, how are you?" And she had no idea how I was. And then after about 3 or 4 minutes, she goes, "You're the one who always gave me something sweet." And I went, "Ka-ching, that's who I am." So the sort of emotional connection that we had over our cup of cocoa with a cookie, that stayed, but she had no idea of who I was from name, or that I was once a carer there, or whatever. But then I ask you, is that not that sustainable? We all have our stories, and we all have our conditionings and all that. When they all drop away, in the end, we meet where we all should meet, yes, on the love level, on the emotional level.
Mhm.
So it depends on how you see it or how you approach it. But I
Right.
always tell people who live with a patient with dementia that's the beauty of it, that we can always reach them on that level.
So I love that. I love that. And I wish more family members could see it from that aspect. But I understand that it's a more personable journey for the families that are experiencing it. And there's a set of grief that comes along with that, right? Because they are grieving the loss of identity that comes along with that. But also, struggling with the memories, the thoughts of, I've known this person my whole entire life, or a majority of their life, right? So it's really hard. And again, I'm only speaking hypothetically here, and I want to always be respectful of those individuals. But from what I have seen, it's really hard for an individual not to take it personal when their loved one is cussing them out because they may be in a different place right now, and they don't understand that their loved one may be afraid or they may be scared, um, and things like that. And I don't know if they know how to be in that spot with them because of and hopefully I'm wrong, but what it sounds like, being in that spot with them can be heartbreaking, very, very heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and as you mentioned just before, it comes with a huge basket of different sort of grief. Yes.
Yes.
um it's it's so all encompassing. You lose the sense of future that you build. So I'm talking about couples now, yes, but you can do it with friends, and it's the same with families and all that. The sense of future that you sort of built up, that the sort of, we all have a plan, we all have sort of the idea, when we grow old, we want to go travel, or we want to be there for our grandchildren, or there are still projects you want to do. So the sense of the future together is lost. You lose your partner in the way that you've lived with them, or your father or your mother that you lived with them um, up to now, but they're still alive. So you have to say goodbye to a person or a part of a person that you've been with all your life, and still have that person right there. And they often live then the opposite, or the coin has two sides, and they used to live this side, and suddenly they live that side of their personality, of their self. So you have to say goodbye to the old and invite the new at the same time. It changes your role as a husband or as a wife. Then there's the grief of you lose even more the sense of control, and we have no control over life. But when you have something like that, you can control nothing. You can't even control, like you say, the day to day, the minute to minute. So you lose complete control. So the grief starts from the moment the diagnostic is in the background, in the background of the person that feels that there's something wrong. There's already, what am I, how am I going to do this? The loss of identity, the loss of driving, the loss of purpose, the loss of any sort of self, how do you say, Selbstbestimmtheit, which means they are no longer in control how their day is, or the loss of when they become incontinent. So it is like it's really a never-ending grief process. Once you've sort of dealt with one loss, the next one is already knocking at your door, and that goes over many years. Yeah. So it's not to underestimate what capacity this has. It's and then you've got it in your personal relationship with that person, then it's in the families, then there's the loss of all the social contacts. You're no longer invited to the golf game, you're no longer invited to the road trip because you can't follow conversation. Well, if you're not invited, then your wife's not invited, so then the social contacts fall away. And at the same time, the primary caregiver needs to have a life outside of the life with the patient, because they have to have some sort of continuity in their own life, because when that person passes on, they need to be living their lives. So it's so multidimensional.
Mhm.
And I think that's why I say it's important to talk about it, and to also have that conversation with, even if you're not caring for someone, if you don't have one in the really close proximity of your life, but just there's neighbors, there's at the workplace. I mean, in social structures, dementia patients are everywhere, and the more we talk about it, it takes that pressure away, and it takes that it opens up that space, that the vulnerability, and that we can talk, and it just, yeah, I can go on and on, because it's just dementia, and then it goes.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
And
a
we all
big
have,
balloon.
in all of that, though, there's also beautiful moments. Yes, there's all those sort of conditioning and facades, they fall away. The person becomes very real. There's opportunity to learn to live in the here and now, to learn how to validate people and to be validated yourself. Yes, we all want to be validated for where we are. We all want to be validated. And through living with it or working with dementia patients, you learn that, because when everything else falls away, all you want to be is you want to be seen and heard. You want to be validated for who you are. And in the end, that's what's sort of left, because a lot of it falls away. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And again, where I come from, I come from a place from where the things I've seen, because I'm normally there for the aftermath, after the passing, and I hear the stories and things like that, and I see the tears. I hear the pain in their voices as they speak about how they felt. They felt as if they were talking to a stranger after a while, like they were no longer there. They was constantly having to remind them that, hey, no, I'm your grandson, or no, I'm your daughter. Hey, I'm your husband or your wife, and things like that. So I'm usually there after the fact, right? And so when I speak from the things that I've heard. I've never had any personal journey with having someone with dementia in my life and things like that. As a grief coach, it's like, oh, I need to be there for the families to be able to walk with them and things like that. But I'm also expanding my knowledge and things like that, so I can have a better understanding how to pivot in other people's conversations that they want to have, to be able to show up and hold that space with them, right? To be in that moment with them.
And there's also a difference between women who are primary caregivers and men who are primary caregivers.
Okay.
There's a huge difference. And if I would have to say who struggles more, it's often that the men struggle more.
Is it really?
Because they're suddenly, and this is, I'm not putting everybody in one pot, yes, but somehow we need to sort of talk about it. Women are usually the ones that take care of the kids, are the nurturing ones, do the household, do the cooking and all that, yeah? So men are used to that. And they do, they contribute in all that, but the majority of women, especially in the traditional families, the women are the ones that take care of the house and the family and all that. And suddenly, when she dwindles, suddenly the man has to step up now. Now he doesn't know how to do all this, yes? And now he's got to take care of the wife, and now he's got to take care of the kids, and the kids are now in distress because mom's getting ill, and now men don't have a lot of men, not everybody, not all of them, they are not so in tune with their emotions to verbalize it and show that vulnerability and be that soft, grieving, crying, frustrated, angry man. So now, but he doesn't have much space to do this because now he has to take care of his wife. And so it becomes a real issue. The social contacts are often made by women, the invitations to dinners and all that. It's often done through women. I'm not saying men don't do it, but, I think I'm not so far off there. And then suddenly all that falls away. And it becomes a real struggle for men. And, the simple things like when their wives become incontinent then, and all that washing, and then it becomes a real struggle, and it's a real challenge. And also because they don't have that strong verbal structure as we women do. We talk about everything. We talk amongst each other. I don't know. I'm sure men do as well in a different way, but they're not as verbal as we are. I have the sense. And so, and for the women, it becomes a different challenge when their husbands become more and more dement. Is that all the other structures like bank accounts, insurance, all that they have never done, and now they have to suddenly do it, and then say, how do I do it? How do I make the financial decisions? How do I do it? When do I take the car away from my husband? He's always been the one who's driving. I haven't driven for the past 20 years. And so, and amidst this, you've got to take care. So you're losing the person and the character that you have been in this relationship, while you're losing a part of your relationship. So it's completely and utterly overwhelming. So the conversations that you have are after a person passing. Those are the conversations we have with people who are sort of losing their cognitive ability more and more.
Right.
So the conversations are very, very similar. It's there, just that you still have that human being alive.
Right.
But I think the content and the intensity, and then you know that the grief is going to come again in a different way when the actual physical passing is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to add to that, because you said something very interesting. So when it comes down to men, and this has almost been, the strong suit across the board, the very strong similarities. Men, right? You're absolutely right. Men do have a hard time verbalizing. Yes, you're right, my brother. Relationship grief is the worst feeling. And we're today. I have Nadja, and she's coming in from South Africa. She is a dementia specialist, and so we're talking about we're diving deep into dementia and the relationships that people have, and the grief that comes along with that as well. So, if you have any questions for it, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer those as we go. And thank you for tuning in as well. So the one thing that I do educate people on, it's not that men have a hard time articulating what's going on. It's just that sometimes people don't understand the language that we use.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
Men, since we are not taught to be the more sensitive ones, or taught how to express our emotions, a lot of times those emotions become a foreign language, and that's where that term comes from. When men grieve, it is like a foreign love language that no one else speaks, except for when you come down to other men. Like, I can sit in the same room with another man who's gone through similar things, and it's the words that we speak, or when a man gets angry, right, and things like that, we're often misunderstood, and it's said, "Oh my God, there's something wrong with him." I go, "No, that is how he's crying."
Yes.
Because we don't know how to, because we do have a hard time verbalizing it, that when we do show a sensitive side, when we do show that emotional awareness, we're often kicked in our throats for it. We're often criticized for it. And so we've learned, life has taught us that it's better not to say anything.
It's true. And it takes also, the trust takes longer. I see that when I have support groups, and when the ladies come, they talk about the grandkids and all that, and that's how they find out if as it's a trusting environment. Can I actually open myself up here? Can I be vulnerable? Am I safe here? And guys tend to sit then in the outskirts, and it takes them a while to sort of suss me out and to see, okay, will she understand me? Will she accept me? Is it okay for me to say that I'm not coping and all that? And it takes them just always a little bit longer than it does for women. But
right.
the relief that I feel then when they finally do start talking, it's that's heartwarming, because there is such a relief that they finally have an opportunity to voice the struggles that they've had. And especially here in South Africa, I find that there's a big culture of there is domestic help here. So a lot of dementia patients are kept at home for quite a quite a long time, and they're never taken out of the house because they're taken care of at home. In Europe, where I come from, we don't have those abilities, so we take our dementia patients everywhere, and they are in day centers, and they're part of our daily life. And so that's I had to adjust to as well here, that there's just a different way of dealing with somebody who is struggling with dementia. So it's quite interesting, yeah.
Well, you said something. I want to touch on that because you're absolutely right. I don't want this to be missed by anyone out there. You said that trust is earned. That's why I be trying to, when I do sit down with people, it doesn't matter how long you've been in a relationship with someone. No. Once grief happens, the world changes. And for men, it changes very dramatically. And so the world that we were in before, the one that you had to earn that trust, because for one, if we're in a long-term relationship with you, if we're in a marriage with you, if we have a long-term friendship with you and things like that, we are operating from a place of the environment that we're in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where that trust is built from. Mm-hmm. When we go through grief, when we go through loss, or any sort of thing like that, the world changes. I actually had a discussion with someone, and hopefully she didn't get offended when I said this, but she had said when her husband lost his mom, she did everything to let him know that, hey, I'm still here for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they had been together for quite some time, over 20 years. And so she didn't understand why he up and left and things like that. And I mentioned to her, I said, well, his world changed.
Exactly.
The world where his mom, his first love, because a mother is a child's first love. We're willing to go to the ends of the earth for our mothers. When that world has changed, so does everything else around us, because now we revert back to a place of survival, right? Before we even met that person or anything like that, because life had taught us, hey, you have to be careful. People can hurt you, and this is a vulnerable state. And so just like how people had to earn that trust moving in that direction, now trust is earned again, because now can I trust you to be vulnerable with you? Can I trust you not to hurt me because I'm already hurting? And so then it becomes a defense mechanism. So when men, and this again goes back to conversations I've had with men who have lost parents to dementia and things like that, and listening to the stories. And I'm not going to put anybody's stories out there, but I will share the things that I have learned. They go, I didn't know what to do. I felt so helpless. The worst feeling that a man can ever have, well, the two worst feelings that a man can ever have, is that feeling not being respected, or the feeling of not being needed. We operate from a place of need. This is why we are providers and protectors. If I provide for you, that gives me a sense of purpose. That means that you need me. I have a place in your world, right? You know what I'm saying? As long as I know that you need me, I can show up and fulfill that need. Being a protector, when most men see their family members struggling, and we don't understand, we don't know how to protect them.
So the sense of purpose, when you lose that, I mean, for men and for women, to have no purpose, I think that is a lot of people with dementia lose their sense of purpose, and they go into a deep depression. Yes. And it's really, really difficult, and it takes a tribe to get them out of that.
Yes.
To create to create a new purpose. Yes. And in the very traditional structures where, as you mentioned, men are there to provide and men are there to protect, and they at the beginning of dementia, you're very well aware that you are losing those parts as well. It can cause huge frustration, huge anger, yes, And then to have your partner, even if you've been married for 50 years or something, yeah, you don't know how they are going to react. So it's almost like two new people meeting again, and that comes where you say
Yes.
they have to sort of, sort of say, see, where's the trust? How far can I go, and all that. And that's for the person who has a cognitive ability to do that. The person with the dementia doesn't have that cognitive ability as much anymore. So it's almost like a little bit of a wild card in some situations. And to navigate this, because it's a whole new level of trust, and also of how far can I go, how it's a completely new dance. And you have to step into a sort of almost like a new character in this relationship. So you need to sort of leave your old character and then step into the new character as a primary caregiver, as a sole provider, as a sole protector, as a sole decision maker. But still your partner is there, and you're going, oof, how did I ever get into this? There's blame. How can you have left me? How can you leave me now? And they're not leaving because of choice, they're leaving because the brain is just declining more and more and more. Yeah. It's a how do I say, it's a huge space that opens up with the diagnostic of a dementia.
I want to add to that, because you said something, and I was just talking about this not too long ago. The blame.
Yes.
That is a very dark and dangerous place for a person to be in.
It
And
is.
it's the hardest stage. A lot of people never really pay attention to it, right? But the blame stage of grief, or in any aspect of it, is where most people don't come back from. And
Yeah.
now, what I mean by that is that, and now I'm speaking from my own personal experience, the blame of not being able to protect those that I've loved that have passed on.
Yeah.
I took a lot of responsibility, beat myself up, and I went down this dark, dark, dark rabbit hole. And I didn't know how to come back from that. So now, I'm listening to what you said. I'm going, you know what? You know, um, what if it's the same across the board right there? Because this is where we find ourselves in trouble. That blame is something strong. It is definitely a different beast, because when you can blame yourself for things that are truly out of your control, you tend to make decisions, permanent decisions for temporary situations. And I think we all know what we mean by that. And they're going to offer a trigger warning on that as well, because that is where most people attempt
Yes.
to take their lives.
Blame and shame at the same time. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Shame that so in the world of dementia, shame that I, I I could have done more, or I should have done more, or I didn't see it, or I'm actually, my husband is in a care facility, and I am living my life on. And you might even step into a new relationship, yeah, or you're having a good day with a friend and all that, and that you feel that you're ashamed to have that because your husband is sitting in some dementia facility in front of the TV, and that's his scope of daily life. So there's a shame that that you're actually continuing your life or creating a new path while the other one is still there. So that comes into the equation as well, yeah.
Yes.
And for a primary caregiver, you have to have those windows where you take yourself out of the situation, of the care situation, because the primary caregiver is such a key component in that the whole structure of this caring for a dementia patient is that if they fall away due to carer burnout, then the whole system crumbles. And then that's for us, that becomes a real problem then, because everything is concentrated on the primary caregiver and the patient.
Mm.
And if the
Okay.
primary caregiver falls away because of burnout and because they're not taking care of themselves and they're not continuing their interests and their, self-love and self-regulation and all that, then I always say mission control, we have a problem, yeah? And then we really have a problem.
Can I ask a question? Because I think one of the biggest challenges that I've often seen with caregivers
Mhm.
um, is that the lack of support for them. I know that as someone who has been in the field of servitude to others, um, I've been pretty fortunate. I have certain tools that I can use to disassociate, or detach my emotions from a lot of situations, and things like that, because I realize that my emotions have no place in that situation. That my gift is what I'm here to give, and so I never take anything personal. And so for me, I open myself up, I empty myself out to be able to take on that. And then once I am out of that situation, I know how to release it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's become such a normal thing for me that it becomes second nature for me, so to speak.
Mhm.
Oftentimes I forget, that hey, I need to turn it back on, right? But most of the time it's like, no, um, I know what my role is. Now, when it comes to caregivers and things like that, I have
Mhm.
seen struggles. I have a really good friend who her husband passed away from dementia, and she does a podcast. She's a beautiful human being, and I love watching the things that she do because she is feisty. She is very, very feisty, but she is quick to tell those caregivers like, no, we need to take care of you, okay, because you are a main component in the walk that these individuals are
Mhm.
going to. So you are important when it comes
This
down to supporting our caregivers. What would be your approach in helping educate people how to do that?
the thing is that I see often that it's not that the support structure is there, and there's people all around that were willing to help that primary caregiver.
Mm.
We struggle with them saying, "I need help. I'm
Okay.
not coping anymore." Um, you know, um, the shame of having now a husband that has dementia that doesn't live up to the expectation of society anymore, and then to say, "I'm actually not coping." I mean, and it's not just the primary caregivers or caregivers. I mean, let's be honest, we all have, I mean, I'll include myself into that equation. For me, I had to learn, I'm now 54, and I had to learn to say, I'm not coping. And it's actually okay not to be okay. And I need help. And that even when I say it now, it goes a bit tight around here. Now I have a cognitive ability, I have my spiritual practice. I'm a counselor, coach, and so I have, like you, I have those tools. But even I struggle to say I need help. So now we've got a human being in a very compromised situation, and all of those struggles and all that. The fear of being rejected or fear of not having
Mm.
getting that help is also in that equation, and it becomes very, very difficult to say it. But if we don't know that they need help, we can't give them help. So there is, in this, especially in the world, in the online world, I mean, there are support groups online. There's people like me all over the show. There's neighbors, there is the Rotary. There is all sorts of book clubs, walking clubs. Those are all people that can support you on your journey.
Mhm.
But first of all, we need to have that open conversation and create awareness about what it is to live with a dementia patient and how we can communicate with them and all that. So create awareness of the situation. And through awareness, we create acceptance. And through that acceptance, the caregiver will be able to say, hey guys, I need help. And then there will be that sort of, oh, okay, here we come. What help do you need? That's when the dialogue starts. But I think I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg. Do we need to I think we need to create more awareness and acceptance to give that space for the caregiver to say, I need help, with the reassurance that the understanding of what is actually happening is in the space in our society, because
Okay.
still it's, oh, he's just a bit forgetful, oh, he's repeating himself. And it's, to have a conversation with someone who constantly repeats it, it's tedious and it's frustrating and all that. But if we know how to divert the conversation, and if we, we have that validation to that caregiver to say, yeah, I really truly understand how it feels, or how it must feel if you're living with someone constantly asking you the same questions, Can I take you out for coffee and we'll talk about something completely different? So there is support, but there also has to be the willingness to voice, I need help, and to say it's absolutely okay not to be okay.
I have a question, but also a statement as well, because I
Mhm.
know for me, um, I have a hard time asking for help because sometimes people
Mm,
never understand where I'm coming from,
mm,
and I don't expect people to, and that's and that's okay, right? I became a grief coach because it's something that has brought great joy into my life to be able to not only support but um,
mhm,
serve others and things
mm,
like that. And now grief is one of those things that people never really understand when I tell them that I'm truly in love with it.
mhm. I can
I love
understand.
everything about it, and that can be a statement that most people will look at you and go, "What do you mean? Grief is such a sad thing," and not understanding how I can see the joy and the beauty in the sadness. And it's only because I've had to walk it myself,
Mm,
um, and I found me in that pain. Right?
exactly.
And so my gift was born out of pain. I was born into pain, and have walked it and found ways of, um, not only surviving but thriving, to make it my life's purpose to help others that have gone through something similar.
Mhm.
And to me, that is a beautiful thing.
Mm.
That is a beautiful thing, and so it does
Great.
not bother me. Right now, for me, I do practice self care. And so I think sometimes I don't mean to worry people, but I will disappear, right? I will
Yes.
take the world and go, you know what? I need to get away. And hopefully that others will understand, because I love to go to the mountains. I go fishing, I go camping. I may take a bow and arrow out during hunting season and go hunt and things like that for my own self, right? Not
Mhm.
and people will often go, well, I called you, and all of these different things. I go, I know. Why didn't you answer the phone? And I'm like, I just needed some time to get away. Well, you could at least call me and let me know. And I would go, sometimes I don't want to talk.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes I just need a little bit of quietness. And I need to be able to slow the world down in order to recharge, to think, to gain wisdom. So when I do show back up, I am I am who I am, who I need to be, after I've shed the old Tony, right? And
Mm.
I'm always showing up as a new version of myself. That's why I'm always saying I've always reinvented me. I'm not reinventing no one else. I am reinventing me so I can be the best possible version of me, my authentic self. And that is always going to be a work of art for me.
Mm. But that becomes very difficult if you're a primary caregiver, because you don't have those windows, if you don't take those windows. And to take those windows are sometimes really, really difficult, because
Mm,
you're so embedded in the daily chores, and the patient with dementia is so dependent on you. There comes a point where there's such distrust in everybody else that they actually they look for that one person that they can trust 100%. It's usually
mm,
the
yeah,
spouse
yeah.
or somebody they're very close to, and then they almost cannot survive without them. So even if the wife leaves the home for 2 hours, the husband can have a really challenging struggle at home with that, maybe with the son or whoever's taking care of him in that situation, and they can become aggressive, and they want to leave the house. They don't understand, why is that only the one person that I trust, that I love, that I can lean on, suddenly gone now? Because they only live in the here and now. You can't tell them, oh, she's coming back in an hour. The concept of an hour, there comes a point where there is no more concept of that. So they truly come to a point where they only live in the moment, often in a long-term memory where they felt safe, or where they had to still resolve something, or and they had good memories. But short-term memory is sometimes almost gone. So it's just the here and now. So it's really, really, it takes a tribe to have that primary caregiver take himself out, to go to a cabin, to go fishing, to self-regulate, to self-invent, or to come back to their true selves, to be able to be the best version of themselves at home. You often have like 10 minutes to do that. You've got to be like quick.
Right.
Then is a care situation. And even if you have someone in a care home, it doesn't mean that you're not faced with daily challenges of it's not working, and you this, and you bureaucracy, that and that. So it's easier, but it comes with its own challenges. Yeah. So it's almost, sometimes it's perceived as being in a living prison for both. I had a client that actually said, when her husband passed, that she felt that they were both released out of prison.
That is very, very deep. You guys have any comments or questions related to the topic that we're going through? Please put them in there, and we will definitely get to them and things like that. And I want to say thank you for everyone who's been tuning in on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and everything. And if you know anyone who can benefit from the conversation, please share it along with them. And hopefully you guys are enjoying the conversations that we're having today, because I find it's very fascinating, very, very fascinating because I see there's a lot of similarities across the board, right? And I love the way in your conversation how you can pivot from the different situations and bring it around to a place to where it helps other people understand. And I love, because that comes from experience. You can't get taught these things, right? And so now, I have a question posed along that pivoting moment and things like that. Do you think, or what are your thoughts on, having the different certifications versus having the life experience? How does that affect how you show up in a different moment, and if any, but also how does one pivot with those who are struggling with dementia?
Explain to me what you mean pivot.
Well, okay, so from my personal experience, every loss has its own set of grief rules, right? So child loss is going to be different from parental loss.
Yeah.
And parental loss is going to be different from sibling loss, depending on the relationship that you have had with that individual. Depends on how you pivot in conversation. Okay. So and this may not be the same, maybe it could be the same. I would think that it will direct the conversation from individuals, far as when you show up, Nadja, as a caregiver, how you would interact with women versus men, versus a spouse to a child or a brother or sister, right? Your conversation would have to be a little bit different because of the relationship, correct?
It's very true, and I don't think there's a one fits all to it.
Right.
So right. I think the most important part is that you have that trust and with your client, that you create. For me, it's most important can we build up this trust that we can have almost any sort of a conversation, and also that you have that that you start getting the sense for the other person. Yes, so you're starting to feel the other person, and then you have to sort of go with the flow, because a mother can be, a mother can be different, or you will have to speak to her, or to reach her differently on the one day and then the other day when it comes to grief. The wife might have a day of where frustration is more in the foreground than the actual sadness. So it's almost, again, that I find it's like with whatever I do, even when I teach a yoga class, yeah, I always see what's in the space, what's in the room, what am I sensing, what am I feeling, how am I relating, how am I, in relation to the other person, how is that person in relation with me? And from there, I start the conversation. And maybe that's my pivot point where I go,
Yes.
I'm getting a sense for where we are right now. Because I think in the end, when we come together in a space, it's human and human.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it'll be, I'll put the mask on as a mom, but then even when, if I talk about myself now, I can have the sadness and the grief as a mom. I can take that off and then go as a woman. I can take that off as a member of society. I can take that. So I always see who is stepping into the field with me to have this conversation.
Right.
And then I take it from it. So it's a lot of intuition, and I think you need I think the intuition comes sort of with thank God it comes with age. At least we have something great when we become older. It comes with age and experience, and also that sort of, you always talked about trust. It's about the trust in yourself as, can I step into relation? Can I open my heart? Can I open my senses and let that other person come into my world so I can step into their world? Am I vulnerable? Do I have the guts and the capability of opening up my heart? Because I remember all the way at the beginning of the conversation, in the end, that's where everybody wants to be met, heart to heart. I want to be heard. I want to be validated. I want to be seen. I want to be felt. I want to be understood. And so if I want to have that meaningful conversation with someone, I need to be able to listen. And I need to be able to open up my heart and let them come into my world so I can step into their world. And then may he be a father, or may it be a mother or a child, may it be whoever, then the conversation starts. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And that's what I was asking, that pivot, because every conversation that you can have with a person, there's a pivot point that you must have in order to follow along with that individual without making it about you. And I think that's where a lot of people make that mistake, is that they tend to inject themselves into a situation that they don't need to be injected into, and kind of make it about themselves. And so, I often, when I do mentorship, I go, hey, the biggest thing that you can do is allow that individual to speak without the sense of trying to compete with them. And they go, well, I'm not trying to compete. I go, no, I know that's what you're saying, but that's the way the person's going to take it, because now you're going to begin as a famous rapper used to say, you begin to compare war stories, right? Say, I know that you've gone through this, but I've gone through this as well. And those who are listening that understand where I just got that from, I know you're probably chuckling like, yeah, exactly. That's exactly where I got it from. It's a true statement. You don't need to compare war stories. You don't. You don't need to compare and try to make it seem as if your situation is far worse than the next person, because your situation is, in all actuality, it's yours.
Exactly. And so that's very, I always say, as individual as we are, that's how individual the dementia manifests in a human being. Yes,
Yes, yes,
have-
yes.
you can have the most common one that everybody knows is Alzheimer. You can have two men at the same age with a very similar lifestyle background and all that, and their symptoms will manifest and show completely different. So there is, in this field, there is no one fits all.
Right.
It
Yes,
just isn't.
yes.
Everybody, and because you live in the here and now, as you know as well as I do, one situation, two people, two perspective and also experiences of the same situation. Yes.
Mhm.
So when you're living with someone who has dementia, you're living only in the here and now. That means it's always and they don't have the cognitive ability to relevate their experience. So it's their experience is the experience. Finished. Oh, no, doesn't matter how you experience it. Theirs is their truth. Finished. So you're navigating your own experience and your own truth while you're trying to not react, which is impossible. You can't always not react, yes. And I find also it's really important to be angry and be frustrated. I always say, as long as we have any sense of emotion in the situation, I'm good with it. But so you're navigating two worlds, and sometimes you just want to run. You just want to.
Yes.
Oh.
That's truly understood. Definitely understood. And now my next question would be, you know, there's you mentioned it earlier. I want to touch base on it just a little bit. When the person is struggling with dementia passes, you said earlier that one of your clients felt as if they were both being released from a prison. How common is that? Because I know that from what I do understand, the things that I have read, things like that, people do feel entrapped into this this battle, right? That they're not sure how it's supposed to go and things like that. And they watch their loved ones struggle and suffer, things like that. That when they do pass, there's a sense of relief. Like they're not trapped in this world anymore. They're not trapped in the confusion of life in general. So my question would be, how common is that?
It's very common, because what the frustrating thing about dementia is that there's no cure. All we do is we manage symptoms.
Okay.
So there's this hopelessness from the word go, actually. Now, as I always underline it, there's an amazing opportunity on this path with dementia. It is not all just sad doom and gloom. There are amazing, funny moments, and families are able to heal their past together. And it's a huge opportunity as well. The flip side to the coin is that there is no cure. So. And also, we don't know how the person with dementia passes on. I mean, don't get me wrong, nobody knows how they're going to pass on, yes, but you do not die of dementia, but you pass on through an effect of dementia. So your brain decreases and the capacity decreases, your bodily functioning decreases, maybe you trip and you break something, or there's an infection that you can't articulate, and it sort of becomes an infection that we can't manage anymore. So they don't die of dementia, they die due to dementia. So it's also lots of these questions that come up in the end, is it quality of life or quantity of life? Do we do feeding tube? Do we not do feeding tube? Do we, resuscitate or not? And then on top of all that, you've already said goodbye to that person at some stage, and now you've got to say it again. And I think that could just a relief that this journey is finally come to an end, because it's just the grief process is dragged out such a long time. And I think that's
Okay.
that makes it, I have a sense that there comes a big relief, because you're also frustrated because there's nothing you can do. Nothing. There's no cure for it. There's not even the hope for a cure. You know, this
Yes.
is degenerative, period. So I think it's just that the process is so long, and it's so surreal sometimes, because that person is still alive in the same house, maybe in the same bed with you, and then there comes a second round of saying goodbye, and often I find that there's a great relief in it, because it just sets you free. I can completely understand that when people say that, because you're finally able to do the sort of real grief, because they finally have passed on.
Right. You
That's
know, I asked someone one time. I was having a conversation with them, and they said something very similar to what you said. And I want to add to something that they also put inside of there, is that along with the anticipatory grief, they said they had grieved that individual so many times
yes.
um, throughout the course, that when they finally did say goodbye, it was another set of grief that came along with that.
And I think it's just the different layers, yes.
Right, different layers, right? And what I mean by that is that, when they said from the beginning, they had already said grieved the goodbyes, right?
Mhm.
And then every time that there was another situation, there was another set of grief that they had experienced. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, and they broke it down so beautifully that I was like, wow. So it is possible to experience um, grief with one person over and over and over again as they're going through the process of declining.
I think it is. It's also, I'm going to put something into the room which isn't also hardly ever talked of. It's also the sort of saying goodbye to the sexual relationship that you have with your partner, yeah, the whole sexuality, which has no time to it, but also that. So also that is part of it, where you have to say goodbye to it, and then do I enter, do I, as a primary caregiver, do I have a new relationship with somebody else? We also see often that people who live in care facilities,
Mhm.
that they create new relationships there, because that is now their reality. So can you imagine, you're coming to visit your husband who is now in a relationship with another lady in that care facility? I mean, how do you do that?
Wow. See, I didn't even think about it that way, right? Because I mean, for me, I don't. mm, there's a lot of things I do not do anymore, right? And doesn't even cross my mind. So I don't entertain the thought or the ideas of it. So I am.
That's it's a reality, I had a patient in one of the care facilities where I work, and I said, "Is there she was is there anything else you would need before we switch off the lights?" And she looked at me, and it came from the bottom of her heart. She goes, "I just need a man." Okay, how do we deal with that?
Understood. I mean,
And there are care facilities where they provide that, yes.
mhm,
Because it is a need. And then you think of it like this: you have a person who does no longer have that extended cognitive capacity to understand. It is not possible. You are in a care facility, you've got dementia, you are 84. This is doesn't the wiring is not like that anymore. There is only the need for a man, period.
mm.
Hmm. Hmm. So
Well, I mean,
yeah,
that
we
is something to think about right there, right? Because I never really thought about it and things like that. But I would say there is there's definitely a need. I would think. um, I've just I don't know. Me personally, I've just conditioned myself to where it's no longer a need. I I taught myself. Um,
Yes, but you just said the word. You conditioned yourself that there is no longer the need. But
right,
remember, when you have dementia, you're conditioning.
right, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I was looking at it just from the standpoint of after a while, and I just never saw the need in it anymore, right?
Hmm.
And again, I'm only speaking from a place where I don't have dementia, right? And so I'm glad that you brought it up because now I can look at it from that point of view. And again, learning how to pivot in my thoughts and things like that to see things
That's it.
from a
So,
different perspective.
well, imagine you're coming into the care facility and you see your husband in hand kissing or being, affectionate with another woman.
Right. How does one deal with something like that?
Conversation, talking, understanding that it's nothing personal. It's not that the person is now, wanting to cheat on you and all that, but it's just that their reality has become a different one. Also, we
Okay.
see at the early stages or mid stages of dementia, hallucinations and psychotic phases where you are having a relationship, you are cheating on me, or I see you constantly with another man,
Right.
and she's sitting there going, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. So that's two realities. His
Mhm.
reality in his world, where the brain is no longer firing or connecting the way it used to, just has a dysfunction, a dis-ease, and it's all about, it's having these conversations. It's having a conversation, saying, "I need help," going to someone who understands it and helps you to depersonalize it, so it doesn't. I mean, that's that's all in theory. In practice, you cannot not take it personally when you see your husband of, I don't know, 52 years or even 20 years in a new relationship. You can't, you do take it personal, but to create a space where you have more and more understanding in, this is due to the dementia and not due to him being unfaithful.
Wow. That
And
is
that's also next layer of grief.
right, right. And that's what the first thing I thought when you said that and everything, because that is, I didn't, my mind is just blown right now because it's like, wow, I've learned a lot. I've learned
Yeah,
absolutely a lot. And
grief has huge layers in this world of dementia, and I think it's
right,
conversations like this to spark off, like you said. I like that pivot. I think it's going to pivot quite a few people, I hope, and through that, we open the next space of conversation, and then the next space and next, and the more awareness we create,
mhm,
hopefully the more easy it will get for us when we should hit the world of dementia. That's
great.
actually, if I'm really, really honest, deep down, that's why I continue to do it. So I hope that I can make a huge change in this world, and that I
Yeah,
can create so much awareness that should I ever become dement, that I will have the absolute perfect support system
I
and
think
care.
you will. I think that is a beautiful thing.
I'm being
Uh,
very selfish, but yeah.
yes, I mean because with people like yourself out here doing this work, you are setting you're setting the well, you're helping build the blueprints for others to be able to not only understand, but to also know how to ask for help and also to be supported in their journeys as well. And I love that. I love that. And now with that being said and everything, as we begin to wrap this up, how can people find you? Or did if you had another statement that you wanted to make, please by all means do it.
No, no, no. People can find me on the internet. It's NadjaFredericks.com. So it's my full name.com, and very present in Facebook. Yeah, it's DEMENZCARE on Facebook, and through you, they can always connect to you, and you can pass them on.
Yeah.
Um, what I do want to also, I would love to invite more people to work in the field of dementia with an open mind and an open heart. So we've got a lot of doctors and therapists and all that, but to have people that see this multidimensional space and support people in this multidimensional space.
Right.
I would love to have, more people to support in that sense. But people can find me. I think if there's a will, there's a way. If you really want to find someone, or if you want to find support, the one up there makes it happen.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And and that's a beautiful thing. And before I let you off, and everything, if you can leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
Like I always I end all my yoga classes. Keep your hearts open and share your love.
That is the. Well, Nadja, I want to say thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for sharing your insight and your wisdom with the audience as well as myself. Thank you for being open and just taking us on this journey with you. And we most definitely have to do this again. I mean, we're connected and things like that. So
Yes.
we got a lot of things coming up as well,
Yes.
And for
I'm
everyone,
watching you.
I'm watching you. Oh, you soon. And we do have a lot of things coming up, and to keep everybody updated, you guys have heard me say this before. The magazine is out. You guys go to my website. You guys can subscribe and get your monthly subscription. You get a 6-month subscription. You get a 12-month subscription as well. We have a lot of great things in there. Articles. We have resources on podcasts, events. We have letters that people have written to share with us, let you know. We have something for everyone inside of there. And you guys will see all the people that we work with. We do have the conference coming up next year, 2025, April 25th,
Yes.
the 27th, the Global Grief Conference. We got a lot of great, amazing things that are going to be added to this conference as well. But we also, we have books coming up. We have a lot of things coming up, so you guys stay tuned for that as well. A lot more with the GGN. We got the panel discussions. As always, you guys already know we're diving deep into a lot of topics. But also want to say thank you. Thank you for everyone who has been tuning in, listening. We see you. We guys see you out there. Hopefully, you guys enjoy the conversation. And if you made it this long and you have not already, do me a favor, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But also, maybe this is not for you. Maybe you know someone who can benefit from the conversations that we have. Do me a favor, share it along with them. And go back in and check it out. You don't have to subscribe if you don't want to neither. Just go in and check out something. Find something that benefits from you, and reach out to that individual, because the podcasts do serve multiple purposes. The people that we have on here are actually people who are doing amazing work in this field. All right, reach out to them. Get the support that you need and deserve. But also, know that you're not walking this path alone.
No.
And you guys, big round of applause to my guest today, please. And go and check her out. Give her the support. Let her know that Tony sent you. And if you need to get in contact with her and you want to go through me, by all means, reach out and let her know. And I'll get you guys connected.
Thank you.
With that being said, you guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Brief Let's Talk About It podcast. We got 3 more that I'm doing today, so please tune in for those 3 as well. We guys love you, and as always, you guys already know this is how we close it off. If you're out there, do me a favor, go and tell the people that you love them, because tomorrow's not guaranteed to neither one of us, right? And when you do need support, reach out to us, because we do have people that will walk with you. And we're gonna close this out. Nadja, again, thank you for being here today. For everyone else, hey, see you guys in the next one. All right, peace.